May I speak to you in the name of the one holy and living God.
Amen.
Amen. Prayer is a bridge. Prayer is a bridge. Through prayer, we traverse the distance between desire and fulfillment, actuality and possibility, reality and imagination. In our busyness and distraction, we often neglect the journey of prayer. Perhaps we think of prayer as just one more thing to do on our to-do list. But prayer is not just one more thing to do on our to-do list. It is the key that unlocks the door of the prison of routine and opens the way to creative life. Prayer makes everything else possible because it reveals our heart's desire and the power to embrace it. Prayer is about freedom and the power to exercise it in alignment with God's dream for the world. Prayer bridges the landscape of the phenomenal world and the inner landscape of the soul, what Martin Laird calls the silent land. But silent land is a little bit misleading. When we first cross the bridge of prayer, it is anything but quiet. The continual conversation we have with ourselves is incessant, insistent, and sometimes a little bit insane. It is like entering a dense forest. The air doesn't move, little light gets in, and our thoughts are like boisterous wild animals constantly circling us. But eventually, if we persevere, the forest opens out into a wide open space filled with light and immense quiet. This is the silent land, a spacious, peaceful, timeless space. Here we touch into the current of mercy that flows through all things, experience its healing balm, and intuit the prayer that God is always praying beneath our anxious internal conversation. The bridge of prayer allows us to move back and forth between the phenomenal world and the silent land, between time and eternity, bringing back with us the riches of wisdom, insight, and compassion. This movement between the realms changes us, and it changes the world. It certainly changed our ancestor, Jacob. In the Bible, Jacob is a trickster figure, a mischievous character who gets what he wants through subterfuge and deceit. He steals his twin brother Esau's birthright and blessing. Then, when he flees for his life from Esau's wrath, he ends up meeting his match in his uncle Laban. Laban tricks the trickster into marrying both of his daughters. Now, in the end, Jacob becomes a wealthy man despite his uncle's manipulative scheming, but he is not content. Happiness eludes him. He has yet to bridge the distance between his longing and his sense of belonging. But he knows that such a bridge exists. Earlier in the Jacob narrative, right after he has run away from home, Jacob dreams of a ladder between heaven and earth, upon which angels descend and ascend, bearing messages. In the dream, God renews the promise first made to Jacob's father and grandfather. Even if Jacob has embezzled and abandoned his family, God has not abandoned Jacob or God's promises. I think that many of us are a bit like Jacob. We dream there is something more to life, more than the harms we have caused or suffered, more than the empty promises of bread and circuses. But we remain imprisoned in our guilt or fear and the burdens of responsibility that we carry. We know the bridge is there, but like Jacob, we are too afraid or too distracted to cross it. But Jacob, caught between his fear of the past and his hope for the future, finally crosses that bridge of prayer. He feels the full weight of his estrangement from his brother. He longs to go home. He determines to do so, trusting that God desires something even better for him than he can imagine. He is still Jacob, though. So he sends wagon loads of gifts ahead of him with messages to try to placate Esau. He's still trying to control the narrative. He's still trying to manipulate to get what he wants. He doesn't know how their reunion will turn out. He could be walking into his death. Jacob remains behind and wrestles alone with God in prayer all night long. He holds his own until just before dawn, when the divine being pulls a fast one and throws Jacob's hip out of joint. But Jacob clings to God for a blessing. He is relentless in his prayer. Jacob had to let go of the life he had built on deception and manipulation. He had to die to his trickster identity to experience the blessing of coming face to face with God in the silent land. Jacob, which means the supplanter, had to become Israel. And one of the meanings of Israel is God rules, not Jacob. Prayer changed Jacob. He became Israel. And this new Jacob is humbler and wiser, but also a more vulnerable man, a more open-hearted man, as he goes limping to meet his brother. When Jacob finally meets his brother, he comes alone and bows down 7 times before Esau. Esau runs to greet him, and they fall into each other's arms, weeping with joy. Both Jacob and Esau realized that what they longed for was reconciliation, the love that transfigures longing into belonging. Jacob says to his brother, "Truly, to see your face is to see the face of God." Through prayer, Jacob learned to see the face of God in his estranged brother's face. And that changed everything. That was the true blessing. This is what prayer does to us. It reveals our wounds, opens our hearts, empowers us to see new possibilities and to take previously unimaginable risks. Jacob bet literally everything that he had on love. Everything that he owned, he sent to Esau. Vulnerability became his superpower. Now, Esau might still have rejected Jacob. He might even have killed him. In a sense, that doesn't really matter, though. Jacob had no control over Esau's response. The forgiveness he received was just icing on the cake. Jacob had already become Israel. But the change in Jacob did make reconciliation possible. Prayer not only changes those of us who pray, it leverages the flow of mercy to change the world as well. Not always or always at once, That's the lesson of the parable of the persistent widow. Change takes time. Not because God is slow to help or to grant justice, but because of the cynicism and indifference of people like the corrupt judge who block the flow of mercy. And because perhaps too many of us are unwilling to take the risks for change that the widow demanded. John O'Donohue reminds us that it is so important that prayer happens in the world every day and every night. Prayer is the presence that holds harmony in the midst of chaos. Every time you pray, you add to the light and harmony of creation. If you do not pray, if you do not believe in prayer, then you are living on the prayers of other people. You can pray anytime and anywhere. You do not have to sort out your life so that you can be real with God. Even Jacob was able to pray, and Jacob was not a nice guy. You can pray now, where you are and from whatever state your heart is in. This is the most simple and honest prayer. We always seem to be able to find the most worthy reasons for not just being quite ready to pray. And this means that we never get to prayer. Prayer is so vital and so transformative that the crucial thing is to just pray. Pray now. Regardless of what situation you are in, your heart is always ready to whisper a prayer. And to connect with that prayer that God is always already praying in you. Jesus said, pray always and do not lose heart. In the name of the one holy and living God. Amen.